Hey, wellness warriors. It's Alana Braeford, your go-to co-host here on Crush Your Mountain Health, where we don't tiptoe around change. We walk straight into it in our fiercest power stance. And if you're tuning in today, welcome to the realest, most raw, and yes, occasionally rebellious corner of the wellness world. Before we dive into this spicy episode, make sure you like, subscribe, share with your sisters, your friends, and yes, even your clueless but curious man. And drop us a comment. We love hearing from you. Love. Now, hold on to your green juice, because today we've got a woman who is redefining midlife. Monica Topetti, holistic hormone coach, perimenopause whisperer, and host of the juicy upcoming podcast, Are You There, Midlife? It's me, Monica, is joining us, and oh, she is not here to play. This episode is for every woman who's ever said, wait, is this perimenopause? I'm only 40. How is this happening? Or, will I ever sleep through the night again? Monica is here to remind you that your midlife isn't a meltdown. It's a rebirth. She's fierce, she's funny, and she's got hormone balancing solutions that don't require white coats, hormone pellets, or settling, for this is just how it is. So whether you're foggy, fiery, or just flat out fed up, get ready. Because Monica is bringing the truth, the science, and a whole lot of sass to help you take your power back. You ready to crush through your mountain? Let's do it.
Monica Topetti, welcome to Crush Your Mountain.
Thank you. So good to be here, Henry.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And it is, and I'll tell you something. We come across so many different issues, and perhaps we talk about a lot of the same things, but I think it's important that people understand that each woman is different in her own way. So while we may have perimenopause and menopause that you are an expert in, while we may have different health issues, they affect women differently. And it's a strange thing, one can say, because it helps different people differently at different times. So let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Okay,
right?
I'm ready.
I've worked with some clients of mine who have experienced grief. And my question to you is, how does grief affect a woman or manifest in a woman who's dealing with perimenopause or menopause?
That's a really interesting question. And I don't even think I've discussed that on my podcast, other than the connection of cortisol and stress and hormones. And as you probably know, when you're going through the grieving process, there are stages of the grieving process. But all of that has an effect on our emotions and specifically our stress response. So whether it's chronic stress or an acute stressful situation, somebody that we know or ourselves is in disease or has passed, that releases a stress response in our body. So mainly adrenaline and cortisol. And so what I find in a lot of my clients is that when they undergo a major stressor in their life, whether that is a good stressor, like, maybe they're selling their house and, downsizing, but they're excited, or they're starting a business, or maybe it's what we would call, a more difficult stress, loss of a parent, loss of a pet, divorce, empty nesting, grief that they're experiencing. That is what is often the catalyst for kicking off a hormone imbalance. So it's not just that we're in a state of perimenopause or a state of menopause in which there are biologically things going on in our body, mainly the decline of estrogen, the decline of progesterone, the decline of testosterone. But a lot of times it is the kind of catalyst of a stressful situation like grief that puts our cortisol into overdrive and starts to affect our cortisol balance. And once that's affected, that has a chain reaction. And as we know, our hormones are all very interconnected. So that often is a domino effect to affect other hormones in the body as well.
Well, that said, now how, again, with dealing with those challenges, so stressors as a whole will affect a woman and dealing with that. Now, has there ever been a situation where women, well, dealing with those stresses, can they actually trigger certain symptoms that mimic the conditions?
That mimic the conditions of a hormone imbalance?
Yes.
Absolutely. There's a lot of hormone imbalances that are confused with other things and vice versa. That is the problem of targeting symptoms, right? Because that's what we want to do. We have headaches, so we focus on, how to get rid of the headache. We have low energy, so we focus on how to get rid of the low energy. We're depressed, so we figure out how to get rid of the depression. The problem with that is that is a Band-Aid solution, as you know, and it overlooks the underlying cause. You had somebody on your show that was talking about brain fog, and you had asked about what are some of the underlying causes of brain fog, and she rattled off about 4 or 5 very different causes, everything from hormones to disease to other things. And so in order to really heal what's going on, you have to figure out what's the underlying cause and then focus in on that. So am I clinically depressed, or am I dealing with just very low estrogen and adrenal fatigue? Am I dealing with, low energy because I'm dealing with grief? Or do I have, a thyroid issue going on or a cortisol imbalance going on? So hormones aren't always the answer. And that's why I'm a big proponent for doctors. It's kind of ironic because I have a, holistic natural health podcast. And the reason why I got into that is because I went to doctors for hormone help and they weren't able to help me. That doesn't mean that there's no need for our medical system. There are some diseases that, are only going to be treatable with surgery or in addition to surgery or medication. So my philosophy is go see your doctor, see what they say medically is the issue. Make sure you get checked out for major disease. Now, how you choose to handle that disease is up to you. I prefer kind of a combination of both the traditional medical way about going about healing as well as holistic, the best of both worlds. But it's not just the one-stop shop that I know many of your guests have talked about, going to just the doctor and relying just on the methods that they offer to heal.
But the challenge is with that is you've noticed that, and this has been going on for decades, okay? From the time of Mad Men, that Mad Men era, oftentimes. I'm sorry?
Great show. One of my favorite shows of all time, Mad Men.
Okay, shout out to Mad Men. Okay, but coming from that era, you look at the magazine ads that they have, and it's always, well, when she's depressed or when she's bouncing off the walls or try this pill, and it was a time where the pharmaceutical industry was really kind of honing in on these various symptoms, but they weren't really finding underlying problems. And I still find that to be somewhat systematic today. We're looking at a society now, when we go to the doctor, as you said, our conventional doctors, they want to give you a pill without the understanding the underlying issues and challenges and problems. you know. So again, when you talk to our people, our clients, in terms of choosing the right doctors, are there questions that they need to ask them when it comes to dealing with perimenopause and menopause?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing is, I talk a lot about this on my podcast, is mindset. A lot of us have the traditional mindset that we shouldn't have to pay out of pocket for healthcare. Meaning we pay for health insurance, we go to the doctor, and the doctor that we see should be able to serve our needs. And unfortunately, in the traditional medical system, doctors are reliant on the tools in their toolbox. They go to medical school, they go through a lot of training, they go through continuing education. And a lot of that, of course, is funded by big pharma. But a lot of people like to blame the doctors for not being able to help them or not knowing. And it's more, I think, a systemic issue of our traditional medical system, and the fact that it's solely built to heal symptoms rather than prevent illness, right? It's not a wellness-based model, it's a disease-based model.
And healing in a symptom is not healing the person. And in fact, healing the system is merely quelling. It's, say, for instance, I guess the best thing we can do to describe it, I don't know, there's sometimes you have these fires, and these fires go on for years. Well, what they do is they might put something over the top on the surface, but the fuel is underneath, and it's still burning.
Yes.
And so many illnesses are like that.
Yes.
And I think that oftentimes women get the short end of the stick. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. And I will say, kind of going back to this disease model, so perimenopause and menopause aren't diseases.
Right. I'm talking about the symptoms.
First off, they only handle, the traditional medical systems only deals with disease. So right off the bat, it's not something that they need to treat, right? Because it's not a disease. It's a transition. It's a natural transition in a woman's lifetime, biologically. And then we experience the physical, the mental, the emotional side effects of all of that. So if it's not a disease, you can't treat it as a disease. There are hormone imbalances that are diseases. Thyroid, underactive thyroid is one. A lot of women going through menopause start to have issues with their thyroid. And that is something that can be treated with medication. Some of my clients are on thyroid medication. Some of my clients are on hormone replacement therapy, whether that's synthetic or bioidentical. And so number one, I try and meet clients where they are at. I am not a doctor, and I would never tell anybody to get off their medication. But I'd like to work with clients and their doctors to see if we can reduce dosage of medication eventually. Some clients have actually been able to get off of their thyroid medication through diet, lifestyle changes. So my approach, number one, is if it's a disease, if it's an actual disease and you need to be on medication, don't just one day wake up. My client, she woke up one day and she was feeling so great on the program, she decided to discontinue her thyroid medication. And if you've ever heard of the term a thyroid storm, well, she was wiped out. She couldn't move from her couch. And she was a nurse, by the way. And I said, why did you go off your thyroid medication? She's like, Monica, I was feeling so great on the program. Well, that's amazing. And she could have had a conversation with her doctor and said, let's see if we can reduce the dosage, or I gradually want to maybe wean myself off the medication. But you should never self-diagnose a disease. And you should never go off a medication without talking to your doctor. The hormone imbalances that I mostly deal with are those subclinical hormone imbalances in perimenopause and menopause that don't readily show up on traditional blood tests. And the reason why they don't show up on traditional blood tests, and it's something that you've discussed many times on this show, is because of inflammation. Inflammation actually intercepts the hormone receptors. And so our hormones aren't able to cling to the hormone receptors in our body. So we may have adequate levels of hormones, but because there's that inflammation and there's disconnectivity between the hormones and the receptors, we are operating at as if we had suboptimal levels. So the goal really is to reduce that inflammation so that our hormones can do the job that they were designed to do without just keeping being in an inflamed state and then introducing synthetic or bioidentical hormones into our body. The idea is to help our body heal itself.
So you help individuals through your program, and much of that basically involves your eating lifestyle. I hate using the word diet. Through your eating lifestyle, as well as the holistic treatment or life actions. So let's talk about that for a second, because in my mind, and for those of you that don't know, I'm not a woman. Okay. So I wouldn't know these things. But that said, it would seem that going through the stages should have a corresponding life and activity adjustment that would go hand in hand, and thus making make the change a natural thing as opposed to something abrupt that we don't know what we're dealing with. And unfortunately, us guys tend to be insensitive. I try not to be, but we can be, and we just don't get it because somehow or another in our minds, the women somehow are just female men, God forbid. So, what do you offer in terms of helping them go through those changes?
Yeah, so the program that I have is very diet, lifestyle based. I actually use something called C.R.U.S.H, which is my signature method for my program. And it basically represents the 7 different pillars in our life that are either contributing to our hormone imbalance or healing our hormone imbalance. So the C.R.U.S.H is an acronym. A lot of your coaches on here, we just love our acronyms, but C.R.U.S.H stands for it stands for stress management, sleep optimization, targeted supplementation, hormone disruptors, inflammation, food, which is diet and nutrition, 2 different things, and training, which is activity and exercise. And it's all of those lifestyle components that can be manipulated in order to have your hormones either increase the production of your hormones or optimize your hormone function. Because in some cases, you do have adequate levels, but so we're not necessarily trying to boost production, but we're trying to optimize the functionality of your hormones.
So there are cultures that will prescribe, so to speak, various herbs and diets, foods specifically, when a woman is going through certain stages. Do you subscribe to various herbs or foods at certain points?
Yes and no. Because when I say I treat women in perimenopause and menopause with hormone imbalances, there's 7 to 8 different hormone imbalances that I work with women on. So one of the major flaws in a lot of programs is they'll say, okay, this program is for all women in perimenopause, or this program is for all women in menopause, assuming that they're dealing with the same hormonal issues, which is just not accurate. You can be in perimenopause and have low estrogen. You can also have too much estrogen. So a program that would be focused on getting rid of excess estrogens and increasing progesterone is going to be very different than simply increasing estrogen. On the flip side of that, once you hit menopause, and especially post-menopause, although you can have multiple hormone imbalances, pretty much one thing that every woman is going to be dealing with, while it might not be manifesting the same, is low estrogen and low progesterone, because biologically, that's what's shifting in your body. And once a woman hits post-menopause, she's still producing estrogen, just not as much. And where she's producing it shifts. So primarily from puberty through menopause, estrogen, especially estradiol, is produced in the ovaries, right? So it's a reproductive function. Once we hit postmenopause and we're no longer ovulating, we start to produce estrogen in our adrenal glands, which is one of the reasons why a lot of women in menopause, dealing with the biological shift of estrogen production, plus dealing with life shifts that are often accompanying that age, often will experience an issue with cortisol. So they might be dealing with an estrogen imbalance, a low estrogen, but at the same time, they're dealing with a cortisol issue as well. And so, yes.
We're going to pause for just 1 second.
Okay.
One little thing.
Okay.
My sister is visiting my wife, and they are having some good time, and they're getting a little happy about it.
Okay.
So I told them, no booze in the house unless I get some first. So
that would make this a really fun interview. We should, do a shot before we started.
I can't do that. I vowed a long time ago, before I got married, I would never drink in the presence of another woman, that unless we were actually family. And even out of that,
I like that.
Even out of that, there is literally one female in the family that I will drink around, because we laugh like schoolgirls. I don't do that with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, this part is completely cut out of the show.
I like that.
Right. Getting back into the mode here.
I don't even remember what I was talking about.
Okay. That's okay. We're switching up. You stopped I got you at a good stopping point.
Okay.
So, one of the things that I work with in terms of clients, and of course ours is vastly different, but I find that being in nature, involving yourself in nature, as well as exercise, and even combining the two, has tremendous positive effects on the human body. Have you found that to be the case? And do you actually take your clients through certain exercises or certain sessions out in nature?
Yeah, so all my clients I work with virtually. However, there is a major component, a pillar of the program. I mentioned it earlier, stress management. And there are specific protocols that I recommend because they are scientifically proven to reduce stress. So the ones that are more mental are meditation, breath work, journaling, those are really important practices. The other practice is getting outside in nature. And especially if for my clients that are dealing with cortisol imbalances, I recommend getting out into the sunlight. It can even be a gloomy day, it's okay. But getting out first thing for about 20 minutes in the sunlight without any kind of sunblock. Most women over the age of 40 are deficient in vitamin D3. And so I do recommend that for supplementation as well. But if you're dealing with a cortisol imbalance, that can really help reset things and help restore your natural circadian rhythm. And that's one of the issues that you deal with when you're having a cortisol imbalance, whether that's elevated cortisol or adrenal fatigue, is sleep disturbance. And so that's why sleep and stress go hand in hand. And you could be eating all of the right things. You can be, exercising. But if you're not managing your stress and you're not getting enough sleep, you're not going to be able to balance your hormones and you're not going to be able to lose weight, which is one of the major reasons why women eventually come to see me. They'll, come and say, hey, Monica, I want to lose, 10, 20, 30, 40, however many pounds. I deal with women who want to lose 5 pounds. I deal with women who want to lose 150 pounds. And then, by the way, I feel like crap. All these things are wrong with me. And so I say, well, this is great. This is, I'm glad you want to lose the weight. And naturally balancing your hormones, a side effect of that is weight loss, like without even trying. So that's great. However, we need to be managing your stress and optimizing your sleep, or you're not going to be able to accomplish either.
Now, you alluded to your podcast a couple of times. And now, and I love the name, this, Are You There, Midlife? It's me, Monica. So you and Midlife became really good friends at one point, and it's the title almost sounds as if you're seeking advice from Midlife, wherever it may be. So let's talk about that. Tell us a little bit about Are You There, Midlife? It's me, Monica.
Yeah, so it's kind of a throwback to a book that I read. I'm a child of the 70s. And so there's a really popular book that they actually just made into a movie a couple of years ago. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it's a very much of a coming of age book of a girl who's entering puberty and trying to figure out what's going on and doesn't feel comfortable talking to anybody else about it. And the reason why I picked that is because that kind of sums up most women, including my own, our experience with perimenopause. Because perimenopause has been called the second puberty. It's the second time in your life where things are just running amok and you have no idea why. I call it the third P. We have puberty, and then we have pregnancy, and then we have perimenopause. The difference is there's a lot of stuff out there to help you with puberty and help you through puberty. There's a ton of stuff out there to help you with pregnancy and through pregnancy. But back about 15 years ago, when I entered perimenopause, first off, nobody talked about perimenopause. I didn't even know what perimenopause was. I didn't even know what a hormone was. And so when I went to my doctor with all of these symptoms, not only was, I had no clue what was going on. He really had no clue what was going on either. And so I feel like my podcast is a guide to kind of what to expect when you're entering perimenopause, what to expect when you're entering menopause. I work with clients one-on-one. I put together custom programs for them, but the podcast is meant to be kind of the initial, welcome to perimenopause, welcome to menopause. You're not alone. It's not in your head. Your doctor may have told you, oh, it's just part of aging, or, here's a prescription for, Xanax, or, the only way to deal with this is synthetic hormones. And there is another way. And so the core premise of my podcast is just to really educate women on all of what these two transitions are, what they mean in our bodies. And then I also try to interject a little bit of humor, because if you can't laugh about this, it's really going to get you down. So we laugh a lot, and in between, I give some good information as well.
Well, that's the most important thing, is to not make this natural shift in life some sort of morose funereal moment, because most of things that take place in life that are natural to our changing bodies are really moments of joy when we actually look at what we get to do, as opposed to how things might inhibit us. Many times people just need to have that mind shift first. And your show really does bring that into focus for people. They can laugh at it, they can release that negative energy, and they get the information as well.
Totally. That's what I tried to put together. And I think, a lot of women, I've been in a lot of forums on, social media, and a lot of women have a lot of complaints about menopause and menopause and, the symptoms that they're experiencing. But, there's also some great things to celebrate in perimenopause and menopause. There's some freedom there. There's some reconnection with our body. There's a change kind of in mindset that happens as well. And so I like to focus on some of those good revelations and what it's like on the other side, so that women can really be intentional and present in the journey. And as you mentioned, kind of develop a different mindset. It's the same thing with healthcare. I always like to say that health coaching is the new primary care, because we can't just rely on the traditional medical system to get us through. And we can't just expect change, but not be willing to change our lifestyle. We can't do what we did in our 20s and 30s and expect the same results. But that doesn't mean that we can't be in the best shape we've ever been in our entire life. We just have to do things differently, because biologically our bodies are responding differently.
And I have an incredible guest that's part of my show. She's been on my show. She is a former Miss Universe, and we can tell you that being in that 50-ish age, she's in the best shape of her life. Okay, if you painted her green, she'd be She-Hulk. She's amazing. Okay, and so and then we have individuals who are way past that age, women who are way past that time, and they are doing things that one wouldn't believe. I look at some of us, some of our 30-somethings and 20-somethings who barely can get out of bed, and I know an 89-year-old lady who is a professional bodybuilder and looks good.
Love it.
You see, so understanding that there is joy in change. Wow. Check this out. That was Siri. Quiet down, girl. I just need to turn the phone off. It's just getting a little too crazy. That's not a good feeling. You're in the room by yourself, and then someone goes,
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not, but anyhow, getting back to that, understanding that there's joy in that change, and taking the time. So, your podcast does that in so many different ways, and I'm grateful to have that with you. Let's have you bring that on as part of the health journey of so many women. And us guys can learn a few things too. Right.
Absolutely. I have my husband on there occasionally talking about how hormones affect your marriage and your relationship, because it's not just, it doesn't just, sit in a silo. You're not the only one dealing with it. Your kids are dealing with it. Your coworkers are dealing with it. Your employees, your partner. It's a family affair. So it helps to get everybody on board and be able to understand what's going on so you can explain it to them.
And that's so important, that communication in the family. And so, unfortunately, these changes have often ended in divorce for so many individuals. Personally, so I feel that in many cases it's due to, not perhaps the woman not fully understanding what's happening with her, but also the insensitivity of men, and oftentimes their undesired or their lack of desire to be fully supportive in that role. It's just one of those things. But
yeah, well, the tagline for my podcast is balance your hormones naturally without drugs, doctors, or divorce. Literally, that is my tagline. And the reason why I include that is because a lot of women deal with one of the very first symptoms is mood related issues. And that can create a lot of tension with a spouse.
Yes.
And my husband and my daughter were very much, along on this ride of perimenopause and menopause. And the positive side about that is, as my lifestyle and my diet changed, the lifestyle and diet of my husband changed. And so he is much healthier, and he is taking supplements, and he's doing all the things because, I want to be able to enjoy my 60s, my 70s, my 80s and beyond. And I want him to be able to as well. I don't want to be a really healthy widow. I want to be able to enjoy longevity as well as health span with my partner. So a lot of the clients that I work with, they wind up getting their husbands or their boyfriends or partners on board, and they gradually are starting to change their lifestyle habits as well. So it's affecting couples and families, not just, the woman of the family.
Yes, absolutely. So, there's an interesting analogy that the Apostle Paul made when it came to the husband cherishing or caring for the wife, his commitment. And he actually compares it to the sacrifice, the Christian sacrifice, that of Jesus Christ. And it talks about how important it is that the man sacrifices himself, it cherishes his wife as he does himself, but he said as Christ does the congregation. And so what did he do at the end of it? At the end of it, he gave his life. So the commitment there, that's what we're talking about. And it's important for men to understand that there is a commitment there. And our job, as we love to pound our chest and say that we're head of the household, our job is to exercise that headship in a way that is a shelter and a support to our wives, to our marriage mates. So, I love it that he had, your husband and I got to get together and we're not going to trade war stories. We're just going to celebrate our wives, our incredible women. That's an important thing. Monica, you're an incredible person, and you're just an amazing health and life coach, and then a thought leader in the field of perimenopause and menopause. And I am so grateful to have you here on this show. And I have one more question that I ask all my guests. And before I get to that question, okay, where can they find Are You There, Midlife? It's me, Monica, and all your other good stuff. Where can they find it?
You know what? Just on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, there I will be. So it's Are You There, Midlife? It's me, Monica. And then all sorts of links at the end of the show notes of where you can find me if you want to work with me or take my free hormone symptom profile assessment and find out what's going on with your hormones.
Beautiful. Lovely. Well, let me get to that last question, because this is the one that we go out on, but this is the one that encapsulates everything about you in just a couple of sentences. So feel free to share the answer to this question, which is, Monica Topetti, what does it mean to you to crush your mountain?
That's such a great question. And I did spend some time thinking about it. And for me, no matter what the challenge is, it's not about physicality, it's about mentality. And two things really help get me through difficult times or, unsurmountable obstacles. First is my faith. And my faith teaches me that I am more than a conqueror. And my faith also teaches me to hold capture of my thoughts, because our thoughts control our emotions, and our emotions control our behaviors, and our behaviors control our circumstances. So if we are able to renew our mind and really take captive of those thoughts that are standing in our way, there's nothing that we cannot accomplish. And so the way that I do that is through the renewing of my mind, whether it is scripture or listening to an inspirational podcast or even just uplifting music, getting in touch with my higher power really puts me in that mental state to be able to handle anything physically that comes my way. And there's also, a lot of people will have scriptures that they like to recite that kind of gets them over the hump. But there's a mantra that I first started saying years ago. I am not a runner by any stretch of the imagination, but I was involved in a human trafficking group at my church, and they were doing a 5K to run to raise funds. And so I agreed to run in it. And I am just like one of those like reluctant runners. And I was training for the 5K, and I couldn't run more than a few minutes. And then I had, to stop because I was so out of breath. And I was like, you know what? I don't care like what time I get in this 5K, but my goal was to complete it without stopping. And so the mantra that I came up with was, if you want something that you've never done, you have to do something that you've never done. And that's what kept me going. And so if you can really take capture of your thoughts and realize everything in life, whatever it is a matter of perspective, you can actually begin to change your circumstances.
Absolutely. It kind of goes in the saying, with the saying, your energy flows where your focus goes, and thoughts are energy.
Yes.
It's so vital that that everyone maintains that. And yes, in order to stretch, you have to go in places that you've never gone. In order to move forward, you have to go in places where you've never gone. And so really we want to thank you for all of your insights, your incredible programs that you have for individuals. Go to see her website. Give us the name of your website again.
AreYouThereMidlife.com.
AreYouThereMidlife.com, and avail yourself of all the free stuff that she's got. But check out the podcast this month. This lady's got good stuff on there that's going to help individuals, and mostly women, some of us guys. And so again, and even if you're not a woman, but you need to get your insights so that significant other, that wife, that girlfriend, that sister, that aunt, your mom, you get these insights as a young male or an older male, and then now something clicks, and now you can do better and help. Why not do that? And we'll join Monica in having a chat with Midlife. So thank you so very much, Monica. I always say, don't just climb your mountain, crush through it. See you next time. Hey, Monica, thanks again.
Thanks, Henry.
I always say,
Now that was the kind of conversation that shifts mindsets, balances hormones, and just might save your sanity. Big love and big thanks to Monica Topetti for keeping it real and giving us the hormone truth we wish we learned in health class. If you have not already, go follow her podcast. Are You There? Midlife? It is me, Monica. Trust me, it is like your best friend, your big sister, and your holistic health coach rolled into one. Before you click away, do your future self a favor. Like this episode. Subscribe to the podcast. Share it with your girlfriends, your book club, your brunch crew. Every woman deserves this knowledge. And do not forget to leave us a comment. We love hearing how you are crushing through your own mountain. And hey, if the stress has been stacking up like laundry on a Monday, do not forget. At Crush Your Mountain Coaching, we offer free de-stress sessions and affordable wellness packages to help you lower your glucose, reset your lifestyle, and reclaim your energy naturally. So until next time, remember, don't just climb your mountain, crush through it.